that cars that are built here and purchased by Canadians and have accessed by the American market are done the same way. We will not engage in any agreement that doesn't favor Canadian workers. We've stood up for the workers in the past. We will continue to do that and look forward to my colleagues actually negotiating that agreement with the United States.
Hear, hear, hear,
hear. Where are we? Is that
Elizabeth, make a statement by line first.
Okay. There'll be 2 minutes, 22 seconds left in the Q&A after question period. Statements by members. Déclaration de député. The honourable member for Saanich Gulf Islands.
I will not, in the next 60 seconds, be able to do justice to the accomplishments of Dr. David Suzuki, scientist, geneticist, broadcaster, author, and educator, and activist. David Suzuki has been recipient of the highest citizen award in this country, Companion to the Order of Canada. He's been awarded awards by universities around the world, too numerous to mention. Japan, Australia, through Europe, UNESCO, United Nations, and the alternative Nobel Prize, the Right Livelihood Award. Host for decades of The Nature of Things, he educated generations of Canadians, making and increasing our awareness that nature itself is a miracle. He has been, in his personal life, a devoted husband, father, grandfather, and now great-grandfather. David Suzuki is much loved by millions of Canadians, and for good reason. His 90th birthday is today. Happy birthday!
The honourable member for Pickering, Brooklyn.
Mr. Speaker, today is the International Day for Rights to the Truth Concerning Gross Human Rights Violation. The UN warns that during times of geopolitical strife, facts are manipulated, victims re-traumatized, and violations erased. This is not abstract. Many constituents in my riding have shared that their own family members enduring these conditions in Iran today. When a government turns against its people, the first things taken are food, water, dignity, and truth. This is a collective responsibility. When people cannot speak their truth, we must speak it for them. So today, learn the names, share the stories, bear witness, because the most powerful thing any of us can do is refuse to let the truth disappear. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Mission Matsqui, Abbotsford.
Mr. Speaker, last week we had another serious flood warning in the Fraser Valley. Today, I plead with the government to listen to the concerns of our region, a key national economic corridor. On November 24th, 2021 in this House, I was promised that the Liberal government would be a partner in rebuilding Abbotsford for a stronger future. We are still waiting for action. The government has signaled that the $51 billion Build Community Strong Fund will help my community recover. But what my riding is looking for is an assurance that this funding will be allocated accordingly. I implore the Minister of Infrastructure to ensure that we are not forgotten. Every major railway runs through our area. The local airport is critical for national defense. Highway number 1 is the key arterial road in British Columbia, and the Trans Mountain Pipeline runs through the flood zone. The time for talk is over. We need action from the federal government. They need to fulfill their promises.
The honourable member for Fleetwood, Port Kells.
Mr. Speaker, across Canada, people from many cultures and backgrounds come together to contribute to a shared society. The safety, opportunity, and sense of belonging found here are what led to many people to choose Canada their home. This week, as we mark the International Day for the Elimination of Racial Discrimination, we reflect on the importance of protecting these values. Respect, social cohesion, and a strong spirit of living together are what allows our communities to grow and flourish. By encouraging these principles, we ensure that Canada remains a place where diversity is welcomed and where everyone has the opportunity to succeed. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Yorkton, Melville.
mark a very important occasion in the history of Canada and Parliament. 60 years ago, a prairie girl was inspired by her grade 6 teacher's lessons celebrating Canada's 100th birthday, so inspired that a seed was planted in her heart. What she wasn't taught, and I dare say was not even known at the time, a special event was being planned on the Hill by parliamentarians to come together to thank God for the Canada's biblical values of faith, family, and freedom, the first National Prayer Breakfast of Canada. This morning, over 1,500 followers of Christ from across every province and territory gathered for the 60th Annual National Prayer Breakfast, now the longest-running parliamentary event on the Hill.
Yes.
It's no accident that C9 will be voted on tomorrow. Called upon by religious leaders, legal experts, civil society organizations, and hundreds of thousands of people of all faiths, I will vote against C9 as it repeals the good faith religious speech defense in our criminal code. God is here today. He will still be here tomorrow.
Yeah!
L'honorable député de...
The Honourable Member for Ottawa Vanier Gloucester. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's an honour to rise today to recognize the remarkable career of Saint-Phar Désir. After 14 years as the director of the HoC organization, Mr. Saint-Phar Désir is leaving behind a legacy deeply anchored in service and humanism. Under his leadership, the HoC has grown, has broadened its services, and is playing a key role in order to support new Francophone arrivals to the region. Thanks to his vision, his leadership, and his integrity, Monsieur Désir has transformed complex challenges into opportunities to build a more inclusive and stronger society.
Departure marks the end of an era, but his legacy remains indelible. On behalf of our community, we wish to express our deep gratitude for his exceptional dedication and invaluable contributions. Nous accueillons la nouvelle directrice, Madame.
We'd like to congratulate the new director, Madame Jefté, and we reaffirm our full commitment to a constructive and lasting collaboration.
Bull River.
Today I rise and congratulate the community of Taber in my riding for being named a finalist in this year's Craft Hockeyville competition. For being selected as Alberta's provincial winner, earning $50,000 for arena upgrades along with a chance to compete for the $250,000 grand prize and the opportunity to host an NHL preseason game. This recognition comes at a critical time for Taber. In December last year, a serious explosion seriously damaged the town's arena and forced its closure, disrupting the local community, minor hockey, and other community events. Taber has a proud hockey tradition. It's the hometown of former NHL star Devin Sadaguchi, and its rink has long hosted youth camps led by the Calgary Flames alumni Chris Versteeg, bringing the next generation of athletes together. Winning Craft Hockeyville is a testament to community spirit, and Taber has shown exactly that in the face of adversity. I wish the community of Taber the very best in the finals, along with the community of Tumbler Ridge, and congratulate them on a truly deserving community-led effort.
Hear, hear. The Honourable Member for Brampton South.
On this day, we reflect on our progress and the work still ahead. TB is preventable, treatable, and curable. Yet it continues to affect thousands of people, including here in Canada. In recent years, over 2,500 people in Canada have been diagnosed. Yesterday, Health Canada approved a new drug that will expand access to shorter, safer, preventable TB treatments. Canada is also advancing vaccine research and clinical trials and working with global partners like Gavi to expand immunization worldwide. Organizations like Stop TB Canada and Results Canada are part of a broader network doing vital work on the ground and making a real difference. Today we recognize all those contributing to this effort, and we renew our shared responsibility because together we can end tuberculosis. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Fundy Royal.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to acknowledge the excellent work of Don and Geraldine Bettle, third-generation farmers in Passaiquoddy, New Brunswick. Their farm has been in operation along the Kennebecasis River since the 1800s. The river is a major factor on the farm, and the Bettles are committed to protecting water quality and biodiversity on their land. The systems that the Bettles have put in place benefit the community and the local ecosystem, and they help to ensure that New Brunswickers can enjoy this river for years to come. In September, the Canadian Cattle Association chose Dawn and Geraldine to receive the Environmental Stewardship Award for 2025, which recognizes cattle producers who explore innovative ways to protect and enhance operations and the environment. So congratulations to Dawn and Geraldine Bettel on receiving this award, and thank you for all the great work that you do.
L'honorable député de Beauharnois, Salaberry, Soulanges, Huntington.
The honourable member for Beauharnois, Salaberry, Soulanges, Huntington. Mr. Speaker, a fraction of a second and everything changed when two pilots lost their lives Sunday due to a collision on the New York LaGuardia Airport runway. On behalf of the Bloc Québécois, I'd like to offer my condolences to the loved ones of Mackenzie Gunter, and I'd like to offer my condolences and support to all members of the family of Antoine Forêt, who was only 30 years old and from Coteau-du-Lac in my riding. He probably saved dozens of lives before he lost his. I'd also offer my best wishes to the 41 people who have been hospitalized, including Solange Tremblay, a flight attendant who was ejected from the plane and who is currently recovering. I'd also like to congratulate the first responders, to all of the victims' loved ones, to everyone who is currently in shock. I hope that the shared memories and affection that you hold in your hearts can bring you some comfort during this extremely difficult time.
The honourable member for Scarborough Centre, Don Valley East.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. At a time when girls and women in Afghanistan are being denied the basic right to education, Canadians are stepping up to help. The Ottawa-Kabul Global Education Centre, a Canadian-registered not-for-profit founded in 2024, is working to restore educational opportunities for Afghan girls and women forced out of classrooms. Through a fully online academic ecosystem, the organization now supports more than 18,000 students, including over 7,000 former female medical students continuing their studies with volunteer professors from around the world. Over 900 educators and professionals, many Canadians, are helping ensure these young women can continue their education and pursue their careers in fields such as medicine, nursing, and public health. This initiative reflects the best of Canadian compassion, leadership, and commitment to gender equality. I would like to recognize the volunteers and leaders, many from Scarborough, behind this important work and thank them for standing with Afghan girls and women. Thank you.
The honourable member for Brampton West.
Mr. Speaker, Canada's auto sector is in crisis. Production has been cut in half since 2015 and dropped another 7.8% last year. Exports are down more than 53%. Over 5,000 workers are out of a job. In Brampton alone, 3,000 jobs have been lost. Under this Liberal government, the promise to protect this industry has proven to be an illusion. Instead of fighting for our workers, they accepted U.S. tariffs as permanent. Nearly $2 billion has been taken from Canadian auto manufacturers. Worse, that Liberals subsidize foreign-made vehicles while Canadian plants sit idle. That's not leadership. That is surrender. Conservatives have a plan. Remove the GST on Canadian-made cars and costly EV mandates and bring home a new tariff-free auto pack to double our production to $2 million, 2 million vehicles a year. Let's rebuild our auto sector, restore our economic strength, and stand up for Canadians.
The honourable member for Humber River Black Creek.
I rise today to recognize the extraordinary courage of the people of Iran in the face of immense hardship. Across that nation, citizens have shown remarkable bravery, and in particular, the women of Iran have stood at the forefront, risking their safety and their lives in their fight for dignity, rights, and democracy. We are witnessing devastating destruction and deepening chaos, with innocent lives caught in the turmoil of conflict. This violence must end. We must strive for a peaceful resolution that paves the way for a transitional government, one that reflects the will of the Iranian people and sets the country firmly on a path towards democracy. A free and democratic Iran remains the dream of millions, both within its borders and across their diaspora. We stand in solidarity with them and hope that this aspiration may soon become a reality. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Essex.
Speaker, I'm proud to represent hardworking auto workers of Essex-Windsor who build vehicles that keep North America moving. Living on Canada's busiest border crossing, I understand firsthand how deeply connected Canada and the U.S. are and how vital it is to strengthen the auto sector on both sides of the border. Yeah. After 10 years of Liberals in power, Canadian auto production has fallen by half, from over 2 million vehicles to just over 1.2 million. This Prime Minister promised to get tariffs removed by July 21st, 2025, and yet he has allowed Donald Trump to collect $2 billion in tariffs from auto manufacturers. Shameful. I am here today to say no more. No more job losses, no more empty promises, no more sacrifices from our auto workers. That's why I support the Conservative plan for a tariff-free auto pact. Essex-Windsor auto workers are among the best in the world, and their jobs deserve to be protected. Yeah.
The honourable member for London West.
Mr. Speaker, we celebrated International Francophonie Day on March 20th. We can also celebrate a new investment of $1.5 million to support Francophone immigration in minority French language communities outside Quebec. It's not a coincidence that both of these things are happening at the same time. As a Franco-Ontarian, I know what it means to arrive to a minority community and ultimately find your community there. Canada has reached a target of 8.9% Francophone permanent residents outside Quebec in 2025, and it's going to be 12% by 2029. These numbers represent real families who are choosing to build their lives in French in communities like London and southwestern Ontario. This investment recognizes that our minority Francophone communities are contributing a great deal to this country, and I will continue to represent this community in Ottawa and ensure that my community is a big part of our country's history.
Lake Eastman.
Mr. Speaker, these Liberals are failing Canadian workers, farmers, and businesses. The Prime Minister promised he would have a trade deal done 9 months ago, but we're still waiting. He isn't even willing to sit at the negotiating table. While he dithers and delays, Canada has lost over 100,000 jobs in the first 2 months of this year alone. Our economy is shrinking. We have the second highest unemployment, the highest household debt, and the highest food inflation in the G7. If the Prime Minister is looking for someone to blame, all he needs to do is look in the mirror. His government is running the biggest deficit in history, blocking growth on anti-energy laws, added more bureaucratic red tape to construction projects, and imposed an industrial carbon tax that punishes Canadian farmers and manufacturers. And all this Liberal mismanagement results in our economy shrinking, jobs disappearing, and our national debt rapidly growing out of control. If the Prime Minister won't take blame, will he just get out of the way so Canadians can get back to work?
The honourable member for Vancouver Granville. Honourable member for Vancouver Granville.
Mr. Speaker, tomorrow Canadians will welcome His Highness Prince Rahim Aga Khan, the 50th hereditary Imam of the Ismaili Muslims, to Canada, his first visit to Canada since his ascension to the Imamate. Canada and the Ismaili Imamate have a decades-long history of partnership and cooperation built on shared values and a commitment to improving the quality of life of peoples around the world. This relationship transcends politics and reflects the best of Canada in action in some of the most challenging places across the globe. This visit by His Highness will serve to reaffirm that commitment and to find new ways to work together in a complex world, supporting development through economic progress, collaborating to address global issues like climate change and food security, and building a stronger, more pluralistic Canada. For Ismailis, this visit holds special significance, as it will be an opportunity for thousands in our community to meet with our Imam, to recommit ourselves to our values of kindness, compassion, and spiritual search, and of working to build stronger societies in which everyone can belong. On this important historic occasion, I know that all members in this House will join me in welcoming His Highness the Aga Khan to Canada.
Hey, hey. Oral questions, questions orales. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Yesterday, the Auditor General exposed the catastrophic management of 3 Liberal ministers on immigration. Liberal immigration ministers have ignored proof of massive fraud in 150,000 cases of fake foreign students. They've investigated 3% of cases and abandoned half of those because these alleged fraudsters did not answer their emails. Can the Prime Minister rise in the House of Commons and fire these incompetent Liberal ministers? The Honourable Minister of Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. We support the recommendations of the Auditor General, and we have been acting since 2025. 100% of cases flagged by institutions are followed up on, and we are investigating high-risk cases. The results are clear. The controls and verifications are enforced. The number of students has dropped by more than 60% that are coming in. We are reestablishing the integrity of the system, and we are mastering it. Thank you. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition. The question was for the Prime Minister, who is here in Ottawa today. He needs to take responsibility for these three incompetent ministers. They are current ministers, the Minister of Justice, the Minister of Heritage, and the Minister of Immigration, who have all been part of this situation. They've all been incredibly incompetent. Over 150,000 potentials of fraud cases that have not been investigated. Just 3% of cases have been investigated. Most of those have been abandoned. Will the Prime Minister take personal responsibility for his current incompetent cabinet and fire these ministers? The Honourable Minister of Canadian Identity and Canadian Culture. Mr. Speaker, I got into politics because I love my country, Canada. The opposition member got into politics because he had tendinitis. He thinks that Canadians are losers, and he thinks that his job is terrible. He's on video saying that. You know, that's not responsible, and that's why we support the Prime Minister.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, with that kind of incompetent, incoherent answer, it's not hard to understand how that minister failed to investigate 97% of the 150,000 suspected cases of fraud in the international student program. Mr. Speaker, not only that, of the 3% that he did have investigated, they abandoned half of those because the suspected fraudster did not respond to investigators' emails. Mr. Speaker, this is the current Liberal government. Will the current Liberal Prime Minister take responsibility, fire that minister, the Justice Minister, and the Immigration Minister?
The Honourable Minister of Justice.
If he wants to talk about incompetence in politics, he need look no further than the mirror. Listen to the approach that he takes on Canada-U.S. relations, saying it's not the Americans' fault, it's ours, we're stupid, while his caucus colleagues go down to south to say that we're throwing a hissy fit up here. You want to see incompetence? Let's look at the Conservative leader's statements, calling the RCMP leadership despicable and calling on his political opponents to be jailed. We will move forward with thoughtful policy that ensures our immigration system moves with integrity, while we welcome newcomers who can help grow the economy.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Speaker, this Prime Minister is rewarding and encouraging incompetence by putting the single worst immigration minister in Canadian history in as the new Minister of Justice. That minister caused a 300% increase in population growth. Now we know that there were hundreds of thousands of potentially fraudulent cases that he refused to have investigated. 97% of the cases of potential fraud were uninvestigated, and half of the remaining 3% were abandoned because the fraudsters did not respond to emails. Will the Prime Minister take responsibility for these incompetent Liberals and fire them now?
The Honourable Minister of Immigration. The Honourable Minister of Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Let me repeat for that member and his entire caucus. As I said, since 2025, 100% of the discrepancies reported were followed up. And they were followed up 100% since 2025 with the high-risk investigated. The Auditor General confirmed improvements took place. IRCC has tightened its approach, and we have control over over the student visas. The numbers prove it. Thank you.
Yeah. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Okay, now the mystery is resolved. We have only 3% of the 150,000 cases of suspected fraud were investigated at all. Half of those investigations were abandoned because the alleged fraudster didn't respond to their email. But now we learned they have followed up with another email, Mr. Speaker, and the threat is clear. If there is no response to that email, there will be yet another email, Mr. Speaker. With this kind of total incompetence under the leadership of the current Liberal Prime Minister, why won't he fire these 3 ministers so we can get the system?
The honourable minister.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Let me tell Canadians and this member and his caucus that the report examined 18 months. The government had already initiated improvement to the system way before the audit started. The Auditor General confirmed that the system is tightened, the student visas have been examined, improvements has taken place. Since 2025, 100% of referrals from institutions were examined. Thank you.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, I admit it's unfair for the Prime Minister, the Liberal Prime Minister, to force that minister to respond for all of the mistakes of her 2 predecessors, whom he has promoted. But it really is the illusion of this Prime Minister. He refuses to stand and answer questions today, although he is in Ottawa, on the fact that we have the only shrinking economy in the G7. The worst food price inflation in the G7. The worst household debt in the G7, the worst housing costs in the G7, 100,000 jobs lost in the first 2 months of this year. Will the Prime Minister have the courage to stand up now and defend his terrible Liberal track?
The Honourable.
What is this, Terry Springer? Steve needs to stand up.
Yeah. The Honourable Government House Leader.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. We will stand up every day and be proud of the Liberal track record in standing up for Canada and building Canada. And what the Leader of the Opposition has been treated to today is a minister who is in control of this file, who has seen immigration levels, student visas go down. In fact, for the first time ever, Mr. Speaker, last year Canada dropped 100,000 population. Canada has one of the best immigration systems in the country, in the world, and people are proud of it. People stand by it, and
the honourable member for Beloeil-Chambly. Mr. Speaker, we are following what's happening at the Supreme Court very closely this week. Some of the speakers are excellent. Some are somewhere between stupid and insulting. While there's still time, will the government recognize that it should say to its lawyers to cancel what they have said and ask its lawyers to not plea against Quebec? The Honourable Minister of Justice. Mr. Speaker, I thank my colleague for his question. It's very important to clarify the federal government's position. We have an opportunity and an obligation to defend the Constitution. It's possible to defend the French language and the Constitution at the same time. What is happening before the Supreme Court of Canada? Well, that's the appropriate place to have that discussion. The Honourable Member for Beloeil-Chambly. Mr. Speaker, the Quebec National Assembly passed a state secularism law in 2019. Whether you like it or not, it is legitimate. Is the government telling Quebecers that the federal parliament is superior and has authority over the Parliament of Quebec? Is Liberal Canada, does it think that it's the boss of Quebec? The Honourable Minister of Government Transformation. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And I have a hard time understanding the question from my colleague. First of all, we are in a state of law where it's possible for groups and citizens to challenge laws before the courts, and that can go all the way to the Supreme Court. That's what's happening right now with Bill 21, Mr. Speaker. But if he's saying that the federal government is using the disallowance power, it hasn't been used since 1943. I wasn't even born the last time that happened. I don't think he was born either the last time that happened. We have no intention of using the disallowance law. The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. Well, I'd be lying if I said that I was surprised that he doesn't understand. Pierre Elliott Trudeau's Canada imposed a constitution on Quebec. Quebec did not sign that constitution, and it's never accepted it. And now today we're being said that according to that constitution and its charter, which was put in place against Quebec, that Ottawa is the boss. Does Liberal Canada, which is going against Quebec at the Supreme Court, say that the National Assembly of Quebec should submit to the rest of Canada? Is Quebec a colony of Canada? The Honourable Minister. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I think that Quebecers are very proud to live in a state of law where you can challenge laws. That's what's being done by Quebecers before the Supreme Court right now, Mr. Speaker, and we're going to let the Supreme Court do its work. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Thornhill.
You can add the Auditor General's name to the long list of people who know the Immigration Minister is not very good at her job. She already has no idea how to address the millions of expired visa holders in Canada, and a new report found that of over 150,000 fraudulent immigration cases, less than 3% were investigated. There's no accountability for the fraudsters and no accountability for anyone who broke the system. People like her and the last two immigration ministers still get to sit in cabinet. So I have the question again, when are they getting fired?
The Honourable Minister of Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. As I said a couple of times already this morning, since 2025, 100% of discrepancies that were referred by the educational institutions to IRCC received follow-ups. The high-risk ones were fully investigated. The results are clear. We welcome the recommendation. We will continue to improve our systems, but the Auditor General made it clear we had already started to implement all of those prior to her commencing the report.
The Honourable Member for Thornhill.
We get it, Mr. Speaker. They got follow-up emails, but it's even her Liberal colleagues who are telling the CBC that she's not fit for the job. But none of that seems to matter to the Liberal Prime Minister, because this is how it works in Liberal offices. In Liberal Ottawa, I should say. Step 1, you fail at your job. Step 2, you get a promotion. Step 3, you start the cycle again. That's what happened to the last immigration minister, who's the culture minister, and the one before that, who's the attorney general. So based on how it all works here, I have a different question for the Prime Minister. When is he giving the current immigration minister her next promotion?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Step 1, you have a 25-point lead in the polls. Step 2, you have an election. Step 3, you lose your seat. Why is that leader of the opposition still in his seat?
The Honourable The Honourable Member for Calgary Nose Hill.
Under this Liberal Prime Minister, the Liberals' immigration crisis is worse than ever before. They're giving sweetheart sentences to non-citizen sexual assaulters instead of deporting them. Bogus asylum claimants are getting better health care than Canadians. And there's over 150,000 cases of student permit fraud. There are millions of non-citizens with no legal reason to be in Canada, but there's no accountability. 3 of the most incompetent and destruction immigration ministers in Canadian history are still in cabinet. Why?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians elected this government last year because they know that this government has a plan. Our plan has results. It is not based on a script as they do on the other side. Over the last year, we've reduced temporary residence by more than half. We brought the asylum numbers by more than a third. We've refocused economic immigration like never before it's been done. Canadians can see that this government is focused and has a plan. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Calgary Nose Hill.
Well, let's look at the plan. 150,000 cases of student permit fraud under this Prime Minister, this Liberal Prime Minister. They just bought an entire hotel for asylum claimants with tax dollars. Bogus asylum claimants are getting better health care than Canadian seniors who have paid their whole life into the system. Yet that immigration minister still has her job. Why?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Well, here they go again. Here they go again, Mr. Speaker. This immigration minister has brought a situation under control, a situation where last year Canada's population actually declined. Canada's immigration system is admired, as our country is, the world over, Mr. Speaker. And this immigration minister is executing on a clear plan to bring temporary residents of this country down. And shame on that member for picking on Ukrainian war refugees for coming to this country and getting treated.
The Honourable Member for Charlebourg, Haute-Saint-Charles. Mr. Speaker, according to the Auditor General, tens of thousands of people have come into the country and have stayed in the country without proper verification. The government is unable to say who amongst the foreign students is respecting the rules, who has left the country, who has stayed illegally. In other words, the Liberals have opened the door, but they have no idea who's come in. Who is in the country? We don't know. It's time for the Prime Minister to accept responsibility for promoting immigration ministers who created this chaos. When is he going to fire these three ministers? The Honourable Minister of Immigration. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. The temporary status is exactly that. It's temporary. And that's not new. Under our plan, Canada has set clear goals when it comes to temporary residence and extensions. We are respecting our plan, and at the end of your permit, you have to leave. That expectation is clear. We will continue to meet our goals, and we will apply our rules. Thank you. The Honourable Member for Charlebourg-Haute-Saint-Charles. After 10 years, this government has completely lost control of immigration. The proof is in the Auditor General's report yesterday. It confirms that of all the people who've asked for student visas, 150,000 problematic cases have been identified. But the government has only investigated 4,000 cases. The rest have just been, forgotten, lost in the cracks. And we don't even know who has stayed in the country without a permit. When will the Prime Minister fire this minister and the two former immigration ministers for incompetence? The Honourable Minister of Canadian Identity and Culture. Mr. Speaker, while we were reducing immigration, the Leader of the Opposition was crisscrossing the country promising visas to anyone. It's ridiculous. You don't need an Auditor General to verify the incompetence of the Leader of the Opposition and many members of his caucus. It's absolutely ridiculous. It's a proof of irresponsibility from the opposition. I think that they should be ashamed. Just look at the videos on Twitter, Mr. Speaker. The Honourable Member for Montmorency-Charlevoix. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. According to the Auditor General, the immigration system for foreign students is completely out of control. In 1 year, as many as 150,000 fake foreign student requests for visas have been made, and less than 3% of those were verified by the government. It's not complicated. The Liberals have completely lost control of the immigration system, and they continue to hand out visas left, right, and centre. What people in Quebec want is an immigration system that respects our capacity to welcome and integrate newcomers to the Quebec nation. Can the Prime Minister please explain how he is keeping ministers who are doing more harm than good in their positions? The Honourable Minister of Industry. Mr. Speaker, our government's plan is working. The plan is to be in control of immigration, knowing that Canadians trust us to maintain that control. We have been able to reduce immigration levels. For the first time in 50 years, we have lowered population growth in Canada. And we are going to work with the government of Quebec and The Quebec lieutenant spoke with the government of Quebec last week because we have to have immigration under control, but we also have to be able to help businesses who also have problems with a labor shortage. The honourable member for Rivière-du-Nord. Mr. Speaker, 3 provinces are joining with Quebec to call for more powers when it comes to appointing judges. After Quebec, Ontario, Alberta, and Saskatchewan now want Superior Court judges to be chosen from their lists of candidates. They also want to have their word to say on the choice of Supreme Court judge appointments. Quebec and the provinces have had enough of seeing the Prime Minister and his friends get involved in judge appointments to help Liberals. Will the government respect what the provinces are asking for? The Honourable Minister of Justice. Mr. Speaker, I thank my colleague for the question. It's very important to understand that we have a process that works today. We receive recommendations from an independent committee. We have opportunities to discuss those proposals with our counterparts in the provinces and territories. It's a process that works, and we don't need to change the process now. If my counterparts want to participate in the processes, they just have to give me a call. It's as simple as that. The honourable member for Rivière-du-Nord. Mr. Speaker, Quebec and 3 other provinces want to choose their own judges because the process in Ottawa is tainted. It's tainted red. Remember the Liberal list, that partisan tool that the Liberals used to appoint Liberals. And remember that among judges who had previously donated to political parties, 76% of those were Liberals. Remember in 2019 in New Brunswick, 5 of the 6 judges appointed were the neighbor of a Liberal minister, the brother-in-law's wife, and 3 of their donors. Will the government include Quebec and the provinces who want to be involved in it in an impartial process for appointing judges? The Honourable Minister. Well, now, Mr. Speaker, there is a process that works. The process is independent. It benefits from recommendations of the committee that's already in place. It's important to ensure that every candidate has the ability to participate in the court system.
Provinces and territories to take their feedback into the process and make talented appointments. Regardless of the political history of the candidate, we want the best people for the job, and that's what the process is providing.
Honourable member for Saskatoon West.
Mr. Speaker, the Liberal incompetence in our immigration system keeps getting worse. Yesterday, the Auditor General revealed widespread fraud in the Liberals' international student program. Even worse, of the 150,000 suspected fraud cases, the department reviewed less than 3% of them. And this is only one part of the Liberal immigration mess. So, did the Liberal Prime Minister fix this? Not at all. Besides keeping his terrible minister in place, he promoted the last 2 incompetent ministers. They're raining down destruction as his Justice Minister and Culture Minister. Why are 3 of the most incompetent and destructive immigration ministers still in his cabinet?
Why?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Well, Mr. Speaker, that question has been asked several times and answered several times. I wonder that if that member, when he was growing up and dreaming of being in the Parliament of Canada, is now having a reckoning with the fact that he's being handed some question by some 24-year-old in the Leader's office, and now is being required to stand up in the House of Commons and read it again.
True story.
That is what's going on here.
Perfectly all right. Perfectly all right. The honourable member for Saskatoon West.
Mr. Speaker, unlike that member, I don't work for the PMO. The truth is, the immigration minister is so incompetent that her own Liberal colleagues told CBC she wasn't fit for the job, and the mess created by the previous 2 is self-evident. Yet, Liberals are pushing ahead with hundreds of thousands of new foreign work permits with no plans to remove the millions of expiring foreign visa holders who remain in Canada, all while Canadian youth face 14% unemployment rates and non-permanent residents outnumber unemployed Canadians. This insanity has to stop. Why are 3 of the most incompetent and destructive immigration ministers in Canadian history still in his cabinet?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, we quite literally just passed a bill over the obstruction of the Conservatives that permits us to reduce the number of asylum seekers in Canada, just as we have reduced the temporary population of Canada, first time ever, last year. And I would repeat to this member, I work for the people of Canada. He does not work for the Leader of the Opposition. He should stand up and read his own question instead of the questions coming from 24-year-olds in the Leader of the Opposition's office.
The honourable member for Nanaimo Ladysmith.
153,000 student visa cases flagged for fraud. Less than 3% probed. 92% of fraudsters waved through for shots at work permits, residency, and asylum. The Auditor General has exposed an immigration system so broken it can't enforce its own rules. But instead of fixing it, they're going to issue even more permits. Even Liberals say this immigration minister has to go. It's well past time to clean house. So why is the Prime Minister still keeping not one, not two, but 3 failed immigration ministers in his cabinet?
Honourable Minister of Jobs and Family.
Mr. Speaker, despite the conversation today about the impact of immigration on youth unemployment, I will remind the opposition that even though they enjoy the benefits of something like the Canada Summer Jobs Program and go out and meet those students, they vote against those programs time and time again. So it's a little bit fraudulent, I would say, to meet a youth in their riding, celebrate their opportunity while voting against that very program in this House of Commons.
We'll just have to, I mean, there are a lot of epithets going around today. I think we should maybe refrain from some of them. L'honorable député de Beauce.
The honourable member for Beauce. Mr. Speaker, Quebec's regions have run out of patience. The Liberal government's inaction is costing them dearly. Don't just take my word for it. Mayors, business owners, and organizations from Chaudière-Appalaches and across Quebec have come to Ottawa today to sound the alarm. The Liberal Prime Minister promised to lift tariffs on steel. Fail. He created chaos in immigration. Fail. The result, job losses in all our regions. How many more jobs will be lost before the Prime Minister finally keeps his promises to businesses in Beauce? The Honourable Minister of Industry. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Look, my colleague raised a number of cases which are indeed related to tariff-affected sectors, and certainly in Beauce. And we will work through economic development in the Quebec regions with the member. Also, I would be happy if members across the way did more to denounce American tariffs, because clearly the silence seems to be reigning. The honourable member for Chicoutimi-Le-Fjord. Mr. Speaker, businesses in Saguenay-Lac-Saint-Jean are here in Ottawa today because they just can't wait any longer. The Liberal Prime Minister was supposed to reach an agreement on aluminum tariffs with the Trump administration. 1 year later, nothing. Meanwhile, 57,000 jobs were lost in Quebec in February. Aluminum workers are paying the price. Contracts are vanishing. Uncertainty is setting in. The regions are bearing the brunt of this. Why is the Prime Minister letting down our workers and businesses in the regions? The Honourable Minister. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Look, I will have an opportunity to also meet with the same people as my colleague, or whom he will meet later today, and I have an opportunity to work. I had an opportunity to work with him last week. Why? Because we do want to help the workers in the steel sector. We know they're subject to unjustified tariffs. We are there to protect them. We are working with a number of businesses in the region to support them. We are having those conversations, and we are taking decisions with respect to significant investments at Rio Tinto. We are here for the Saguenay-Lac-Saint-Jean region.
For Labrador.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On March 12th, the Prime Minister was in Yellowknife to announce an historic plan to defend, build, and transform the North, backed by more than $40 billion in investment. It's a question I wrote myself. It's very important. Could the Minister of Indigenous Relations please update the House on why this new plan is so critical to keeping the North moving forward? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Minister for Crown Indigenous Relations.
For decades, communities across the Northwest Territories have been clear that
comment.
I couldn't hear the minister, so I'll let the minister start over. Again.
Steve, who wrote the answers? For decades, communities across the Northwest Territories have been clear. The Mackenzie Valley Highway is essential for their future. This project will finally connect remote communities, lower the cost of goods, unlock critical minerals, and create real opportunities for local businesses. We're also advancing the Tolson Hydroelectric Project and the Arctic Economic and Security Corridor with Indigenous partners. With more than $40 billion in investments, we're building a stronger, more resilient, and a more connected North. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Cloverdale-Langley City.
Straight from the heart. I spoke with a man in my riding who works at a local cabinet manufacturing shop. He works hard and pays his taxes. But his hours were cut because students with expired visas take his shifts for cash under the table. This is the direct result of a system the previous Liberal immigration minister let spiral out of control, where international students came without proper oversight and thousands overstayed their enforcement. Will the Liberal Prime Minister admit that this mess started under his previous minister, and Canadians like my constituent are now paying the price?
The Honourable Minister of Jobs and Families.
What the member alleges is hard to prove, actually. But what I will say is that what we can prove is the investments that we're making in workers, the investments that we're making in major projects, the investments that we're making in defence lead to hundreds of thousands of jobs. And you know who's happy about that, Mr. Speaker? Unions, workers all across this country who are eagerly looking forward to building Canada strong under this Prime Minister.
Honourable member for Cloverdale-Langley City.
What we're seeing today didn't come from one mistake. It came from years of mismanagement by multiple Liberal immigration ministers. One opened the floodgates without oversight. Another failed to enforce the rules. And now the current minister is continuing with more permits with millions of visas sitting expired or unchecked. Even Liberal MPs have said this minister isn't up to the job. So through you, Mr. Speaker, I ask the Prime Minister, why are three of the most ineffective immigration ministers in Canadian history still sitting around the cabinet table while Canadians face the consequences of their failures?
The Honourable Secretary of State for Labour.
Mr. Speaker, many members on this side of the House have answered that question throughout this entire question period. So what I would say, Mr. Speaker, is that the number of repetitive questions from the Conservative benches are up. Mr. Speaker, you know what's down? The number of Conservative MPs sitting on that side of the House.
The honourable member for Aurora Oak Ridges, Richmond Hill.
Mr. Speaker, after 10 years of disastrous Liberal policies, the immigration crisis is worse now than ever before. The Auditor General's latest findings revealed widespread fraud and dangerous gaps in the Liberals' oversight of foreign student work permits. In spite of this, the Liberals are pushing ahead with hundreds of thousands of new foreign work permits with no plan to remove the millions of existing expired foreign visa holders who remain in Canada. The Liberal Prime Minister needs to take responsibility for promoting the ministers who created this chaos. Why are three of the most incompetent and destructive ministers in Canadian history still in his cabinet?
The Honourable Secretary of State for Financial Institutions.
Mr. Speaker, we're not going to take advice on jobs, on the economy, from a leader who's never worked one day in it. On this side of the House, we're going to continue to build the strongest economy in the G7. At home, we've cut taxes for 22 million Canadians. Abroad, we're signing new trade deals. Diversifying markets will result in thousands of jobs, tens of billions of dollars in investment. Time for that leader, that party to stop the same questions, the same rhetoric. Help us build Canada strong.
The honourable member for Aurora Oak Ridges, Richmond Hill.
Mr. Speaker, successive Liberal immigration ministers have destroyed our once respected immigration system. Yesterday, the Auditor General revealed that the Liberals only reviewed 2.6% of 153,000 suspected cases of foreign student work permit fraud. The Liberals have allowed hundreds of IRGC agents into the country. Yesterday, the immigration minister practiced the art of deflection. It seems that when it comes to the safety of Canadians, that the Liberal ministers play a game of who, me? Yes, you. Not me. Then who? Why are some of the most incompetent and destructive ministers in Canadian history still in cabinet?
The Honourable Minister for Women and Gender Equality.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Speaking of young people in this country are ready to work, and we're making sure that the opportunities are there for them. Through the Canada Summer Job, we have tens of thousands of young people who are getting their job for the first time, and they're getting experience right in their communities. And we're investing $635 million in student work placements so that post-secondary students can build their careers and jobs right here in this country. And that's what we're focused on. We're focused on youth that can gain the skills for the future to build Canada strong, Mr. Speaker.
Nice job. For Dufferin Caledon.
Let's talk some auto facts. A decade ago, before these Liberals took office, Canadian auto producers produced 2 million vehicles a year. After a decade of their incompetence, that went down to 1.2 million. Now it gets worse, unfortunately, because since this new Prime Minister has taken office, auto exports are down a further 54%. It's a decimation. We've lost the Brampton plant. We've lost Picard. We've lost the Bright Drop facility. We've lost the third shift at Ottawa. And this is all since they announced their so-called new auto policy. When will they realize it's garbage and move to our tariff-free auto pact?
In the interest of fairness, when that word was used before by another member, I expressed disappointment. And so I'll do the same because I want to be consistent. I just don't think that elevates us in the eyes of the public. The Honourable Minister of Industry.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, let's talk about facts. The proposal by the Conservatives is too little, too late. You know why? They didn't even consult workers when doing it.
That's right.
They actually have no measures for workers in their auto proposals. And actually, Unifor, which represents workers, is against it. Our auto pact, our auto proposal, is actually supported by the Conservative Premier of Ontario.
They said well, not from the top, but I'll give the member a few extra seconds because it was very loud on the left, like it can be very loud at the back on the right. And it's a good way for the chair to learn the names of ridings when members do that, because. Yeah, so we'll give the Honourable Minister a little more time.
So from the top, Mr. Speaker, everyone is in favor of our auto strategy. The Conservative Premier of Ontario, Premier Ford, industry, unions, consumer, everyone. And so why don't they get with the program and get on our side?
The Honourable Member for Dufferin Caledon.
It's actually shocking how uninformed the industry minister is when it comes to the auto strategy. They announced their auto strategy. Auto exports, since they announced it, are down 32%. This is a decimation. The reason this is happening is because there are tariffs on our autos at about 15%. They've been completely incapable of removing the tariffs. They have no plan to remove the tariffs. All they do is talk about something that might happen. We have a plan that's been endorsed by the President of the Oshawa Assembly Plant and the Canadian Vehicle Manufacturers Association. Why don't they get on board with a tariff-free auto pact?
The Honourable Minister of Industry.
Mr. Speaker, whatever was that? Mr. Speaker, what the Conservatives forgot when thinking of our industry in the auto sector is actually 200,000 workers. Why? Because they forgot about auto parts. And Canada has been leading when it comes to auto parts. We have the 3 biggest companies in the world: Linamar, Martin-Urea, Magna. They forgot to protect the GM engines and transmissions workers in Cambridge. They forgot the Ford engines auto workers in Windsor. They forgot the Honda engine workers in Alliston. They forgot, and I could go on.
The Honourable Member for Oxford.
Mr. Speaker, the Liberals have thrown in the towel on Canada's auto sector. Since 2015, auto production is down by half. Exports are down by 53%, and over 5,000 auto jobs are gone. The Conservatives' Auto Pact will restore tariff-free access to the U.S., doubling auto production here at home. So instead of giving up on our auto sector, will the Liberals stand with our auto workers, support our motion to boost production here in Canada?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Finance.
You know, nostalgia is not a strategy. We can't go back to 1965 to a tariff-free auto pact. What has Unifor said about the Conservatives' so-called plan? They said this plan cannot achieve its intended objectives. It is mathematically incorrect, and it may prevent potential future growth in our automotive industry. Unlike them, we actually sit down with the workers and the unions and consult them on the plans and strategies which we lead and move forward on implementing. We've offered liquidity support, financing for them to pivot, adjusted the availability standard for EVs, and much, much more.
The Honourable Member for Oxford.
Mr. Speaker, here's what the president of Unifor Local 222 said, and I quote, "Finally, a plan to protect the livelihoods of thousands of Ontario auto workers." Mr. Speaker, under the Liberal plan, production is down, exports are down, job losses are up. Our Conservative plan would double auto production here in Canada. The Canadian Vehicle Manufacturers Association supports our plan. The local unions support our plan. The auto worker on the assembly line supports our plan. Will they?
The Honourable Minister of Industry.
This government has gone on every line of production in the auto sector, and we have the support of workers. But what is clear, and I know the Brampton facility is really important to my colleague. And you know what Unifor, the head of Unifor Canada, Lana Payne, said? Well, actually, their auto proposal is putting the very Stellantis Brampton plan in jeopardy. And also the GM Ingersoll future in jeopardy. Why are they against the auto workers in Brampton and Ingersoll, Mr. Speaker?
The Honourable Member for Niagara West.
Mr. Speaker, Canada's auto sector has been gutted. Production has been cut in half since 2015. Thousands of jobs are gone and exports have collapsed. Now with U.S. tariffs hammering our workers, the Prime Minister has done nothing to stop them. Instead, he's accepted them as permanent while using Canadian tax dollars to subsidize foreign-built vehicles. That's not a plan. That is surrender. Conservatives have put forward a tariff-free auto pact to double production, restore our supply chains, and bring jobs to Canada. Will the Prime Minister stand up for Canadian workers and support our plan, or will he continue with the managed decline of the auto sector, just like the rest of the economy?
The Honourable Minister of Artificial Intelligence and Digital Innovation.
Mr. Speaker, the Conservatives want to close their eyes and hope that the tariffs just go away like it's 50 years ago. That's not a plan. That's a fantasy. Even the Globe and Mail said that their plan is straight from the 60s. Sorry, nostalgia is not a plan. We are investing in our auto workers. In fact, Federal Economic Development of Southern Ontario is investing in the parts manufacturers. I visited Kumi in Bradford or A. Burger Precision in Brampton West, conservative ridings. Their voters support our plan. Why don't they open their eyes, stop fantasizing, and support our plan?
The Honourable Member for Davenport.
Mr. Speaker, as chair of the Canada-NATO Parliamentary Association, I know that parliamentarians across the Alliance and countries on both sides of the Atlantic are looking to Canada for leadership in new cutting-edge defense technologies and innovation. It is critical that we rearm, rebuild, and reinvest in the Canadian Armed Forces while building up Canadian industry. Can the Minister of National Defence update this House on the critical investments we are making in Canada's defence industry?
Bravo. The Honourable Minister of National Defence.
Speaker, with Canada's first ever defence industrial strategy, we're making major investments to build up Canada's domestic defence industry. Last week alone, we announced a $900 million investment to support drone development and quantum technologies, a $200 million investment in space launch capabilities in Atlantic Canada, a $300 million contract for new modular assault rifles, and over $1.4 billion for domestic ammunition production in Ontario and Quebec. Mr. Speaker, that's a plan we're delivering. It's security, sovereignty, and jobs.
The Honourable Member for Calgary-Midnapore.
The Auditor General dropped another scathing report on the modernization of the pay system. This pay system is now costing taxpayers over $4.2 billion, but this government fails to learn from the Phoenix fiasco, costing millions of dollars more for taxpayers every single year. This government has had an entire decade. When will they fix the system and stop wasting taxpayers' money?
The Honourable Minister of Government Transformation.
Speaker, and quite to the contrary, what the Auditor General has mentioned is that Canadians will get value for their money and that we're moving cautiously. And by the way, I want to thank the Auditor General for her report, and we're accepting the 3 recommendations she's made to make sure that we get this right, because public servants deserve to have an exact pay on time, and that's exactly what we're moving forward with this new pay system. Thank you.
The member for Calgary-Midnapore.
Well, public servants are actually scared to retire because they don't trust the pay system. And it's no wonder there are over 230,000 transactions that are backlogged, and many of those are more than a year old. This government has had 10 years, and now they want to fast-track the old system to the new system. When will they fix the system and give public servants confidence in both their paychecks and their retirement?
The Honourable Minister.
L'honorable. Did something happen? I don't know. I didn't see anything. L'honorable ministre.
The Honourable Minister.
Yeah. Okay, I missed something here, but thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And I want to thank the member for her question. It's an important question. Public servants deserve to have an exact pay and on time. And as far as the backlog is concerned, I'm happy to report that we've reduced by 50% the backlog over the course of the last 2 years. And we have learned from the mistakes by over Phoenix that we need to move step by step in a cautious way, in a prudent way, to make sure that we get this transition right. And this transition we will get right. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
For Yellowhead.
I'll always be worried the government will come looking for something. I can never trust the information I get from them. These are the words of a public servant afraid to retire because of a broken pay system this Liberal government refuses to fix. And 133,000 employees are in the same situation. The Auditor General confirmed billions have been spent with no clear plan to fix the backlog, meaning the new system will start with the same flawed data. How can the Canadians trust the government to fix the mess they've had a decade to address?
L'honorable ministre.
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, and first I want to thank the Auditor General for her report, and we accept her recommendations. We're working on the 3 that she's put forward, and one of which is, of course, to make sure that we reduce the backlog in a timely way, which is exactly what we're doing. We've reduced by 50% over the course of the last 2 years, and as we are transitioning to a new pay system, Mr. Speaker, we're making sure that we're going step by step in incremental pieces so that we get this transition right. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Markham Unionville.
Mr. Speaker, as digital capabilities evolve, so do crimes and threats to our national security. For decades, law enforcement agencies across the country have asked for updated tools to combat crimes like extortion, child exploitation, auto theft, and organized crime. Can the Minister of Public Safety elaborate on the importance of lawful access measures and Bill C-22 to keep Canadians safe?
Honourable Minister of Public Safety.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and let me thank the member for Markham Unionville for his hard work and advocacy, Mr. Speaker. As you're aware, Mr. Speaker, law enforcement across Canada have been asking for additional tools, the most important one being lawful access in order to ensure the safety and security of Canadians. Through Bill C-22, law enforcement will have the tools they need to combat childhood sexual exploitation, extortion, human trafficking, money laundering, and more, Mr. Speaker. I urge all members in this House to support Bill C-22 and to ensure that law enforcement have the tools that they need to keep Canadians safe.
Member for Cowichan, Malahat, Langford.
Mr. Speaker, the recreational fishing industry is facing a review of the salmon allocation policy that could destroy their industry and strip away Canada's historic principle of common property resource access. The recreational fishing industry supports over 9,000 jobs, generates $600 million direct income, and contributes over $1.2 billion in GDP in British Columbia. Will the minister commit to protecting historical access to common property resources for recreational fishing, or will the Liberals let yet another vital industry, coastal communities, and a way of life on Vancouver Island die?
Hear, hear. The Honourable Minister of Fisheries and Oceans.
The policy that the member referenced was last put in place in 1999. So, of course, we took 6 years, starting in 2018, to review the terms, 1 year of consultation, finished the end of January. No decision has been made.
The Honourable Member for Vancouver East.
In the middle of a national housing crisis, the Liberals has quietly pulled funding for the Right Fit program, a program that directly connects wheelchair users with accessible housing. With just days' notice, funding is being cut as of April 1st, leaving some of the most vulnerable Canadians, people with disabilities, without support, without housing options, and without answers. At a time when accessible housing is already in critically short supply, how can the housing minister justify abandoning wheelchair users in such a cruel manner and cutting the very programs designed to help them find a place to live?
The Honourable Minister of Housing and Infrastructure.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I'd like to thank the member from Vancouver East for the question. We are obviously very concerned about those who are homeless right now or are utilizing the programs that we put in place through Reaching Home and the Unsheltered Encampment Initiative. That program, the Unsheltered Encampment Initiative, was a 2-year program. We've communicated very clearly the transition over to Reaching Home, which continues for several more years. We want to make sure we're providing the services. We are putting $1 billion into supportive and transitional housing as well, working with provinces to make sure we can support people who need that housing the most.
The Honourable Member for Courtenay Alberni.
Mr. Speaker, the illegal war waged by Donald Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu in the Middle East is inflicting devastating consequences on civilians, especially children. The humanitarian and environmental toll is immense, and the economic fallout is global, driving up gas and fertilizer prices, disrupting critical supplies like helium used in MRIs, and threatening pharmaceutical supply chains. Canadians who are already struggling with the cost of living will feel these impacts. Will the Prime Minister ensure Canada is not complicit with our arms exports in the killings of civilians and take a clear stance against this horrific war?
The Honourable Minister of Foreign Affairs.
Thank my honourable colleague for raising this very important point. And Canada is also deeply concerned about the humanitarian toll that the war is taking, including our concern about the closure of the Strait of Hormuz, which is threatening global energy security and economic stability. As we have emphasized, Canada's focus is on humanitarianism, is on de-escalation, is on ensuring the unimpeded flow of energy and supplies through the Strait of Hormuz. And we urge all parties to de-escalate the conflict, and we will continue to work with G7 and like-minded countries. Thank you.
I'd like to draw the attention of members to the presence in the gallery of the Honourable Lana Popham, Minister of Agriculture and Food for the province of British Columbia. And the Honourable Bowen Ma, Minister of Infrastructure for the province of British Columbia. Honourable Minister of Jobs and Families. Excuse me, we'll give it, if we could have some quiet. The Minister of Jobs and Families on a point of order, is it?
Yes, Mr. Speaker. At the end of the member from Calgary Midnapor's question just recently, she screamed "shut up" at another member across the aisle. And I have to say, it's disheartening. I know that we get excited and there's heckling that goes on, but to use such unparliamentary language, especially as asking a question, seems really disrespectful of this place.
Yeah, but just let me respond to that point of order. What's the right? I did not hear it. I saw some commotion. I did not hear it. You can understand why. There's a lot of heckling going on, a lot of provocation, and I would urge all members to tone that down because it can produce reactions. I did not hear what transpired. The honourable member for Battleford, Lloydminster, Meadow Lake.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just on that point of order, I will note that
I'm sorry, I can't hear the minister. I can't hear something. Start over.
Can I speak now, Speaker?
Yes, but it's not coming through. I don't know what.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just on that point of order, I will note that the member from Hamilton West, Ancaster Dundas, is repeatedly saying odious, disrespectful things to members on this side. And unfortunately, Speaker, when you fail to intervene, we have to stand up for ourselves. So I would appreciate it if you would bring that member to order when he's acting the way that he does on a repetitive daily basis.
Thank you. It is at this end. It is hard to. Excuse me. Just a moment. It is difficult to hear exactly what is being said way back in the corner there. But I will concur that the member for Hamilton West Ancaster is disruptive in question period. I will not argue with the member on that. I don't hear what is being said. I keep my ears open, and I will endeavor to, and I do endeavor to react to such disturbances. But it's coming from both sides. But I take the member's point about the member for Hamilton West, Ancaster, Dundas. The honourable member for Waterloo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I would ask for you just to review some of the exchanges that have taken place during question period today. As per Standing Order 94-2, you will recognize that unparliamentary language, when it becomes personal, is not welcome in this chamber. Referring to legislation, referring to policies, I can understand. But when we are referring to honourable members with certain terminologies, which I am not going to repeat, I think really should receive a ruling. So there was a line of questioning today after certain ministers labeling them with certain adjectives, adverbs that are just not suitable or appropriate as per the standing orders. So I would just ask that you rewatch the excellent question period that we just had and let us know if it's suitable or not. Thank you.
Well, I don't know. I don't need to rewatch because I did hear some of those adjectives. I will ponder what the member is saying. Yes, we do have a duty to uphold some a minimum level of decorum, and sometimes certain adjectives, as I said before, really comprise a provocation which creates a reaction, and that's unparliamentary because anything that creates disruption is unparliamentary, regardless of whether a word is on a list in the big book. Was there someone else standing up?
Maybe we could get the Prime Minister to show up.
The honourable member knows that's against the rules. Anyone else? Okay. So, we're ready for orders of the day? Orders of the day.
Orders of the day, government orders, business of supply. Resuming consideration of an opposition motion regarding a tariff-free auto pact, standing in the name of Mr. Seaback.
The honourable member for Niagara Falls.
Thank you, Speaker.
Niagara on the Lake. Sorry, I didn't get the full name in there. Sorry.
Thank you, Speaker. It's an honor for me to rise in my place today to participate in the debate on our opposition motion that calls on the federal government to support the Conservative plan to double automotive production through a tariff-free auto pact. This bold new policy offers a fresh take on a similar policy embodied by the old auto pact rules that resulted in Canada's auto manufacturing growing from 700,000 units a year to 3 million by 1999. This Conservative plan makes our goal clear. We seek to double auto production to 2 million vehicles a year, the same levels we had before this Liberal government took office 10 years ago. The viewers at home heard that right. Since 2015, auto production in Canada